All right, what's up, everyone? So I have Melissa Iracha here, and we kind of want to just do this masterclass to help you guys become more resilient to stress and handle stress better, optimize your sleep and increase your sleep quality, and then overall support your energy levels. Just because we know the stress with night shift nursing is pretty hard on your body. So Melissa's here to talk about some things that we could do to help do all those things. All right.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm really excited to speak on this topic. We are going to be going through stress and how to become stress resilient, as you mentioned, really focusing on how to optimize sleep because we can really leverage a lot there by getting sleep quality up. And then lastly, we're going to really bring everything together and give everyone who is listening to this masterclass an actual protocol on how to integrate these things, because knowledge is really important, but if we are going to have difficulty making it a part of our lifestyle, that's really where all of the magic happens. So we're going to give you the tools and the resources to be able to do that. So I'll just jump right in. I mean, if you are in the healthcare industry, this photo likely looks familiar to you. We're looking at the nervous system, and from the brain all the way down the spinal cord, we see that nerves innervate and affect a ton of organ systems, right? And depending on that fight or freeze scenario, you're going to be stimulating certain body systems. Now, obviously, if you are in nursing, healthcare, emergency healthcare, you're probably very familiar with the fight or flight response because you're in it all the time, right? You're in it when you're at work. You might also be in it when you're stuck in traffic, pre or post shift, taking care of a family, which, likely a lot of you on the call have family and responsibilities outside of your job. So why are we highlighting this? It's because, unfortunately, the body doesn't recognize the difference between good stress of getting your workout in to having, a patient without any vital signs and you having to kind of, work a code. So all of that is the exact same thing. The exact same process occurs in the body. And I have here acetylcholine and epinephrine, one a catecholamine and the other a neurotransmitter that are incredibly important. We're going to talk about those in a bit, that are constantly, being used up and released during that stress response. So bonus points if you are listening to this, even, replay, and you laugh or chuckle a little bit at any of my memes. I'm hoping that gets a little bit, because listen, if we're not going to laugh, we're going to definitely cry at this. This graph, it does show what the typical stress response looks like, and you can follow that along with the white line that you see in this chart. So nurses, emergency service workers, we typically operate in the exhausted stage. That super low, I could drink all the coffee, take all the energy drinks in the world, ain't gonna touch me, running on fumes, right? And the reality is we live in a world that stress is not going anywhere. In fact, it's probably getting worse. And to say I am going to reduce stress, although a lovely concept, is not realistic. So we want to actually adapt and become better resilient to stress. And really what that means is, and I actually ask clients this often, when you experience a stressful event, how do you feel? And a lot of my exhausted, burnt out clients say, I have to go to bed. I'm laying in bed all day. It leaves me exhausted. It leaves me overwhelmed. If you're feeling that in response to stress, and that could actually be the workout that you do, that's a sign that your body needs support.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk about a nutrient that contains adaptogens. You saw, and actually I'll just go back real quick. You see in this slide, the white line showing that big curve and that exhausted dip down. The orange line shows you what could happen when you have adaptogens, which are really awesome botanicals on board that help your body better adapt to stress. So a specific nutrient that is a part of the Designs for Sport line, and I know that you offer it, Zach, is Adrenal Flow, and this is your stress vitamin. Truly is what it is. So it contains a ton of adaptogens. Some of the examples are things like ashwagandha. You've probably heard of ashwagandha. It's a very popular adaptogen. Rhodiola, ginseng, eleuthero. And these are all botanicals that have really strong effects in helping the body upregulate what is, not being made enough of, and downregulate what we're overproducing. I wrote here stress vitamins. This is an interesting concept. You require more vitamins B and C when you are stressed, and you actually burn through these vitamins faster. So it's kind of this double-edged sword in that you're burning these off and you require more of them. This is typically why, we know vitamin C and the immune system, why we're more prone to illness or we get sick fast if we've gone through a stressful event. And B vitamins, these are really interesting, especially in the context of fat loss or body composition. B vitamins have a ton of uses in the body, of course, but one of their major roles is helping you metabolize carbohydrate, right? And produce energy. There's a ton of B vitamins responsible for making ATP. So isn't it interesting that when we're stressed, we crave these carbohydrate rich foods and our body isn't so good at actually metabolizing them. Tyrosine is in there. So tyrosine is the precursor to dopamine. We know that motivation and drive, that's your dopamine, your drive neurotransmitter, that can go down. That can go down during times of stress. And Zach, you and I were talking about this offline. This isn't necessarily just, drive to do your job, but we were even saying, we have to make a ton of decisions, like, am I going to exercise today? Am I going to make a good meal choice? When dopamine levels are down, it's actually harder to do that.
Oh yeah. And then definitely just reward too, being happy. So dopamine is important just for having an overall fun life.
Yeah, absolutely. Licorice, just to touch on really quickly, we're not going to get too far into the weeds with cortisol levels, but we know that cortisol is sort of the stress hormone, and we know that it is definitely associated with belly fat, right? But cortisol is not inherently bad. It's just not good when it's elevated during inappropriate times. So when you're trying to sleep and you wake up out of bed and you're ready to go and you're like, what the heck's going on? It's the middle of the evening or afternoon. That could be because cortisol is actually spiked inappropriately. So licorice root is exactly what you think it is, and it actually helps to give you a healthy cortisol curve. So we're going to talk about the timing when we go to the protocol section. This product is really great to keep your energy levels up, especially when you're awake and the rest of the world is asleep. Okay, cool. So we've talked about a nutrient. Let's talk about something that we can do in the moment, because adrenal flow is awesome, but it is going to take consistent, regular use for you to feel what's happening. What can you do in the moment if you are feeling overwhelmed? You just had a patient come in and you're like, what the heck is going on? Or things are just feeling overwhelming at work or in life. The physiological sigh has a ton of actual human data, which is really interesting. I guess I didn't say this at the beginning, but I worked emergency services for 4.5 years in Canada. And I wish I had this tool when I was on the road. Not a lot of mental health and all of that isn't really discussed so much in emergency work and in healthcare. The physiological sigh works very quickly, and it's able to, versus meditation, which obviously takes time, is able to help to stimulate that rest, that sort of autonomic rest nervous system, and take you out of that fight or flight. I had to say out as a Canadian. I'm not sure if you've tried this, Zach, but I'm going to put my hand up and say I'm a really bad meditator, and this has really been a great tool for me.
Same.
Amazing.
I can't sit still for 5 minutes, let alone 30 seconds, really. So
yeah, and that fidgety, can't sit still, constantly having to be on the go is truly our nervous system just really being turned on. And there's nothing wrong with that, because of course it helps us to perform and is likely why you're as successful as you are, and everyone listening to this call is able to have a really successful shift. But we were not made to be on chronic hyper overdrive all the time. If you think of like the perfect descriptor is the antelope who's being chased by the lion and is running for its life. If it escapes the lion, you see that antelope going back to eating grass like nothing went wrong. But someone cuts us off in traffic, and for the rest of the day, we're like, oh, Bob, you're not going to believe what happened to me, Bob. I got cut off on the blah, blah, blah. And we're constantly reliving that moment. So where stress used to be like this, and we go back down to baseline, now it's like chronically elevated.
And let's go through like, what is the physiological side? Can they count for breath in and then count for breath out?
Yeah, this is a really good one. So we can kind of, do it together, and you really just need like 1 or 2 breaths. So if you are around any little human, or you have, children yourself, you've probably seen this happen. When a child is hysterically crying, they do this like to kind of calm themselves down, or maybe it's when they can't calm themselves down. So the body actually naturally does this. It is an innate response. That's what's really cool. All mammals have this, so you cannot fail. It is actually built in. So the way that you perform the physiological sigh is preferably through the nose, but if there's any, difficulty or nasal obstruction, that's fine. You can breathe through the mouth, but we try and want to do this through the nose. We're going to go 2 quick inhales and then an exhale. And it's just in, out as much as you can, exhaling and letting all the air out of the lungs. 1 to 3 times is typically all you need, but you can do it as much as you need and focusing on that exhalation. So just 2 quick in.
Okay, perfect.
I wrote there grip strength HRV. If you wear any trackables, wearables, any of these amazing, technological devices that we have, these are other markers to potentially consider when looking at your stress response or your recovery. And the reason I wrote this is, sometimes we are in a state where we need to focus more on recovery and less on things that cause more stress. So, HRV, that variability between the heart rate, that's a really great marker. And if your grip strength is down, if you're finding like, oh, I was trying to do a deadlift or a heavy dumbbell row, and today, it was hard for me to hold on to those dumbbells, that could be a sign that your nervous system, that your brain needs a bit of a break. And it could be a great time to focus more on this and this. Okay, so I thought this was hilarious because this is exactly what it feels like, waking up after a night shift and you're like, did I sleep?
Yeah, right.
Like I swear the time changed, but it feels like really bad. And okay, I mean, let's get real. The job that nurses, emergency healthcare workers do is absolutely integral. You all save people's lives, right? And I think we all need to be so appreciative of the people that are awake when we get to sleep safely at night. Now, the fact still doesn't change how detrimental sleep deprivation is to your health. So I thought this was an incredible a 24% increase in myocardial infarction, so heart attack, just after that spring forward, that 1 hour time difference. Now, if you're listening to this call, you're changing 12 hours, right? Like you have a 12-hour night shift, a 12-hour day shift, or, even if it's 8, that is significant. So imagine how much extrapolated, just 1 hour is 24% of an increase there. 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And the second bullet point, this study was really interesting because they used healthy participants with normal hormone levels, no hormone disruption, and it aged them to someone 10 years their senior. And testosterone is important for me, and it's just as important for you. I have testosterone just like you have, but of course you have significantly more than I do. But if you are looking to have energy, drive, libido, muscle mass, you want your testosterone levels optimal. And then the last one, the last bullet point here, BS standing for blood sugar. Again, we talked on carbohydrate cravings when you're sleep deprived, and that is exactly what's going on. You are disrupting your blood sugar. And I don't know, Zach, from like a nutritional perspective, I know you've got a really great program. I usually start increasing protein when it comes to like blood sugar stabilizing. What's your typical go-to?
Yeah, so I have them focus on protein, veggies, and fruit. And that's pretty much just to stabilize their blood sugar and just keep them full throughout the day and not craving carbohydrates.
Love it. Amazing. And honestly, sometimes a handful of blueberries is like all you need to just get a little bit of something. And
Just that sweetness, yeah.
and it's cool to understand like why. This is why you're craving carbohydrate. It's not that you're just, delusional and you can't handle your cravings. So I think we all can kind of agree that you're likely coming home exhausted. You are physically exhausted, ready to go. But why is it that when you're laying in your bed, at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and hopefully there's no light in the room and it's cold and you have a really great sleep environment, but why is your mind still racing? Busy brain definitely affects our nursing staff and emergency service workers, any shift worker across the board, because we are overstimulated and we might really want to go to bed. We might be super tired, but those ruminating thoughts keep occurring and they're preventing us from getting to bed. So neurocomplex is so cool. It's super unique. It's actually the only form of magnesium to cross the blood-brain barrier. So we speak to magnesium a lot, and there's over 300 reasons why we need to take mag for processes in the body that magnesium is responsible for. We're also all incredibly deficient, but this is actually the only form of mag that's going to support your brain, not your skeletal muscle. So purposes for both, but neurocomplex is highlighted here because I do often find that my shift workers are using melatonin and copious amounts of melatonin to get to bed. And I totally feel you. If you can't go to sleep in its desperation, you're willing to take whatever to get to bed. Magnesium does not disrupt your circadian rhythm like shift work does, and is a great, less invasive way to really start supporting your sleep. Okay, cool. So we've highlighted sleep and stress and sleep. And now we're going to talk about, okay, it's game time, right? And maybe we'll use some terms like an athlete, but you all perform like athletes. How do you prepare for what is to come, right? So these are 3 products that we're going to speak on to get you through your shift, to make it through those 12 hours, to get it done. GPC liquid is technically considered a nootropic. So a nootropic or a smart drug is anything that can alter brain effects. So this specific nutrient, this choline, increases acetylcholine. So I spoke to acetylcholine at the beginning, and here it is now. Why is that important? Well, first of all, we really don't get a lot from our food. So eating more eggs is amazing. Eating organs, if you enjoy organs, is great.
Liver King. Yeah.
Pardon me?
I said the Liver King.
The Liver King probably has adequate amounts of choline because I think he drinks raw eggs and just eats liver. And I've actually seen him eat salmon roe out of the salmon. So he's got the caviar as well.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I typically, my budget isn't always caviar with every single meal. So if you are like a little bit more like me and you want to use the GPC, it tastes a lot better, which is great.
It does. It really does. I love taking this.
It's super sweet. It's an easy delivery method. I actually might have a little bit in my coffee right now. Anytime that I'm doing speaking or I really want my brain on, I make sure to have this. It works fast. A lot of what we do in like the natural health space, it does take some time, right? You got to put in the work. GPC is kind of one of those cheat codes to get you energy fast. And nurses rely a lot on stimulants to stay awake, and absolutely, but this is a stimulant-free way to keep your brain on and supercharge your brain. It also increases growth hormone, which is great. Obviously not like an exogenous steroid, but to support healthy levels so that you can build the muscle that you're trying to build and improve your body comp. I really love it for memory and focus. I would remember at the end of shift, I think I had a meme previous, you're trying to give a report to a colleague and you're like, where is my brain? It's gone. So this is a really great way to keep your brain nice and sparky. And then I asked this question actually to a lot of my athletes and a lot of my clients, can you rehydrate with water? So, if you've given an IV infusion, a Ringer's lactate, or some sort of MiAre's cocktail, any IV, you're not infusing pure water into your patients. If you were to infuse pure water, you would effectively kill them, right? So we are really silly to think that by drinking copious amounts of water, we're hydrating our body. You are not. You know, sweat is composed of a ton of electrolytes, minerals like magnesium, other metabolites, perhaps pharmaceutical drugs. I don't want to give anyone PTSD by bringing up biochem or, any of that, but I will just show this really quickly. Sodium, potassium, those are the electrolytes that help get water in and out of the cell. So when we are drinking plain water alone, we are not adequately hydrating. Oh, pardon me, which is why electrolytes are important. So electrolytes in the water, getting the energy that you need, and specifically the one that we have in our protocol does really help with stress. All right, so I must talk about caffeine. There's no way that I can leave caffeine out of this equation. And if you are listening and thinking that I'm a nutritionist and I'm about to tell you that you need to cut down on your coffee and reduce the amount of caffeine, I'm a big fan. Okay, so let's just talk about how to use caffeine. Because caffeine actually, I mean, it has a ton of benefits. Obviously, we know that it is magic in the energy context, but what's actually going on in the body? Caffeine blocks adenosine receptor sites, and it helps us be less tired, right? And that's in the energy context, but what does it do outside of that? It actually can help us push harder through our workouts. It does help to, increase the amount of reps that you can do. It reduces a bit of pain perception, which is really great when you're going through it. And it also is a really great thermogenic, right? It's a really great fat loss tool if optimizing body comp is your goal. However, too much of a good thing is not a good thing. So I wanted to speak on, because when it comes to caffeine, of course, we can go in the natural direction with natural coffee, caffeine, or we can go in the synthetic direction or, using products like energy drinks that have a ton of other not so good ingredients that are not great for overall health and well-being. So workout complex, yes, can definitely support workouts and energy, but I wanted to speak to it in the context of night shift nursing because it's not just about increasing your amount of caffeine. I think we can all attest to this. When you're super burnt out, you can drink that cup of coffee and it does nothing to you, right? And you're like, okay, well, that was great. It's because you're not tired because you have a coffee deficiency. You're tired because there's parts and aspects of your brain, neurotransmitters that are not being produced that we need to help and support. So in something like Workout Complex, you're getting a little bit of tyrosine. Again, we're going to focus on dopamine. We're also giving you creatine, which is really great for cognitive performance. I think we always use creatine or thought of it as a workout supplement, which it absolutely is, but we're seeing a ton of data coming out of cognitive decline and how that's super supportive. Creatine is super supportive and it helps us produce energy. You actually have ATP in this product, like the energy unit of your body is within this powder, 100 milligrams of caffeine and 200 of L-theanine. So if you've ever had the caffeine jitters, L-theanine helps to give you a nice smooth ride with your caffeine, and it's a great alternative to coffee. Just a powder, throw in your water, drink it throughout the shift. So with that being said, I wanted to bring everything together and use it in the context of lifestyle, nutrition, and targeted supplement support. And what would this look like regardless of whether you are entering your days or your nights? So this is sort of the protocol here. And I know, Zach, that you also speak to this. Was there anything that you kind of wanted to add with this particular protocol?
So with the wake, it's more so just going to be on if they work out in the morning or in the evening. And depending on if they work out in the morning, when should they kind of take this? Because I know with the workout complex, should they take it pre-workout or kind of wait until they go into their shift, just so they kind of maximize their energy throughout their shift? And then two, if they work out after their shift, when should they be taking some of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So obviously with caffeine use, and if you just worked a night and you're getting off at 6, 7, 8, whatever time, and now you're using Workout Complex, and let's say you're going to train for an hour and then ideally, get to bed. that would not be the greatest time to throw in, although 100 milligrams, I'm sure we've all had a lot more, is still caffeine and is still stimulating. Plus those other nutrients still push you towards that fight or flight. This is actually a great time for GPC liquid, which is non-stimulating. So if you are trying to train immediately after that shift and get that workout done, that would be a really great pre-workout for you. And that's where you could sort of maybe under the caffeine heading, substitute the caffeine for just GPC liquid. If you're training when you wake up after your shift, workout complex works nice and fast, similar to kind of drinking a cup of coffee. It's amazing if you can do that an hour before you train. So that would be ideal. And then the realistic is sometimes what ends up happening anytime pre-workout is, as long as you can kind of get those nutrients in. So that's what I would say, depending on the workout schedule. And the same goes for that whole wake heading, right? If you're on nights, you are waking up maybe at 3 in the afternoon, maybe at 4 in the afternoon. So sometimes getting that bright sun, depending on where you live in the world, may or may not happen. So that's why we put wake versus AM or PM, whatever your wake happens to be, find some sun. And again, being from Canada, I can't always say that I get sun. So I use that Verilux Happy Light, which I actually just ordered on Amazon, and it, super affordable. It's on behind me, in fact. And I do have it on throughout the day to start giving me some of that sun. The easiest, most zero cost, effective way to help your circadian rhythm is to expose your eyes, your skin to sun. Even if it's fake. So now we've got on shift. Of course, the Adrenal Flow was the first product that we talked about, and that's your stress vitamin. So I put there 2 capsules when you wake, again, whenever that happens to be, and then 1 capsule 3 hours later. So that could look like you take your first dose with breakfast, and then you take your second dose with, lunch, or whenever you kind of have that first break on shift. Hydration Complex is the electrolyte product. All of your water should contain electrolytes. Again, the B and C vitamins you're going to run through. This particular product has some D-ribose, has some taurine, there's cardiovascular support, there's adrenal support. So that's just all the time, anytime. And, you had mentioned it there when we were discussing blood sugar and nutrition, focusing on protein during your shift. Obviously, Zach has some really great resources and goes more into the weeds there on that, but I just wanted to give, some high level. Post shift, at shift change. This obviously depends. What's your commute like? I used to take my magnesium post shift because I knew when I shift changed over, by the time I was done giving my report to the next crew, it was an hour and I got home and I was good to go and I was able to go straight to bed. So time your magnesium appropriately. Now we focus today on Neuro Complex, which is a magnesium threonate. That's a form of magnesium. Again, the mind mag that crosses the blood-brain barrier. But magnesium malate and magnesium glycinate are amino acid chelated magnesiums. So it's just a bigger molecule and it goes to the muscle. And this is incredibly important for the body as well. So magnesium, we need it for the brain, but we also need it for the body. And then lastly, just to help you with turn down, sun, incredibly important. iPhone to red, I can share that if that's not something that your community already has access to, where your phone can look like this. There you go. Yeah, red. Red. And then Mito Energy Complex, which is another multivitamin. This would kind of depend on like what your energy levels are like. But use the physiological side as much as you need. Cell phones, obviously, electronics, a massive blue light input. So reduce your blue light where you can, and then create that cave in your room, that cold, dark, quiet environment. Obviously a little bit harder to do so when you're on days, especially if you have other people in your household, but to the best that you can.
Exactly. Yeah, so that was very helpful. Thank you so much, Melissa. And as a gift for staying this long, I'm offering you guys 20% off with the discount code of Night Shift 20. On my website, there's a link in my bio if you guys want to go and get all these supplements. And then inside the course, we kind of go over some more things like Melissa was talking about your sleep environment and giving you sleep tips, and also some smoothie recipes for healthy protein snacks in your shift that are quick, because you can't always eat a steak on your shift. You know what I mean?
Walk
But
around chewing a steak.
exactly. But I hope you guys found this super, super helpful. I really appreciate you doing this for me, Melissa, and all these nurses, to help them just improve their lives, because they're pretty, they go through the ringer, and someone needs to take care of them. So I appreciate your help.
Everyday heroes right there. I'm happy to help. Thank you so much, Zach, and appreciate that.
Great. All right. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.